In our previous episode, we discussed the enemy resistance, this invisible force holding us back from within, not allowing us to reach our full potential, distracting us, telling us stories, leading us astray. To bring us up to speed on some of what we were saying about resistance is the following. The more you love your art, calling, or expertise, the more important its accomplishment is to the evolution of your soul. The more you will fear it, and the more resistance you will experience facing it. Those are the stakes. That is the severity. Stakes, high. Severity, immense. But that is only half the story because, yes, resistance, we can acknowledge that, but now what? The question then becomes, what kind of person do I need to be in order to honor my calling? That one thing that we spoke about. What is that thing that if you were on your deathbed, if you were dying today or tomorrow, that you knew you will have regretted not doing because for some reason you found every excuse in the world not to do it? But knowing now that you have no more time, opportunities run out, suddenly epiphany, realization, fuck, I will die regretting not having done this. That one thing. Remember, we spoke about it, that thing. How do we become the person who can honor that and execute, show up, do it, make it happen? This is Time for Us, and I'm Danny Wallace. Welcome back. This is part 2 of an episode series that I'm doing on the book The War of Art by Steven Pressfield. So Pressfield gets into basically calling our bluff on the fact that in order to materialize our dreams, we need to become professionals about it. He makes this comparison between professionals and amateurs and says that in order for us to get there, to do the thing, we need to go pro. And part of that is showing up whether or not the mood strikes you, whether or not the inspiration is in your bones. You humbly show up with the intention to do the work. And you just, that's all you do. That's all you can do. And you let it unfold from there. Once again, let's just get into the juicy bits. Let's get into the book. This is what he says. On the chapter, the page, it says, a professional. Someone once asked Somerset Maugham, which by the way is an author, probably would have gotten to that conclusion if I just carried on reading. But anyway, if he wrote on a schedule or only when struck by inspiration. I write only when inspiration strikes, he replied. Fortunately, it strikes every morning at 9 a.m. sharp. Maugham reckoned another deeper truth, that by performing the mundane physical act of sitting down and starting to work, he set into motion a mysterious but infallible sequence of events that would produce inspiration, as surely as if the goddess had synchronized her watch with his. I love that so much, and it's definitely something that I think has to be developed because it's quite a brave task. It's a ask of courage for us to show up. Even if we're unenthused, we're in a bad mood, I know that it's easy for us to come up with reasons for not showing up. When I sit down to write poetry, I know that I need to sit down as a practice and that I need to diligently just arrive to the blank page and allow it to come out of me, whatever it is, even if it's shit. Even if I end up crumpling that page and throwing it in the dustbin, I need to just arrive. Yet I have such fear of what I produce because I'm a perfectionist and I seek validation a lot. So the fear within me of creating something subpar or something that I'm unimpressed by really deters me from just sitting down and simply doing the work. And I love how he phrases it, like the mundane physical act of just showing up, because it isn't romantic. I think that we've misled ourselves into believing that creative work is a romance and that it's a whirlwind of just like positive fucking hormones and chemicals going off in our body, and that it's always going to be this like fantasy experience, when truthfully It's quite a slog. That, I think, is the ugly truth. There's this fallacy that if you love your work, you'll never work a day in your life. That it shouldn't be this hard, that you should just rock up and you just fucking do it. And it should be a breeze. But I don't think that that's always true. Yes, there will be days where the creativity pours out of you. And there will also be days where you think you have nothing to contribute and you just have to show up diligently and trust and hope that you can be a conduit for whatever greater creative power there is to kind of flow through you, for your higher self to tap in and allow you to produce, It's definitely easier said than done. And to that point, Pressfield, that is, speaks about the professional's skill of knowing how to be miserable and accepting that you will be miserable along the journey. It's just a part of it. So I'm going to read something for you, and this segment, if you will, is called How to Be Miserable. The artist committing himself to his calling has volunteered for hell. I love that. Whether he knows it or not. He will be dining for the duration on a diet of isolation, rejection, self-doubt, despair, ridicule, contempt, and humiliation. The artist must be like the Marine. He has to know how to be miserable. He has to love being miserable, because this is war, baby, and war is hell. Look, as I said, very colorful language, very dramatic, but I do love that because it kind of removes any gray area and makes it quite black and white and says that, yeah, this is going to be tough. It is not easy. The things that I think need to be cracked open within us to be released in this way, it's like almost birthing something, a lot of the time. I don't know if it gets easier over time. I guess maybe what happens is that you just develop an acceptance of the process, and that by doing the work of showing up becomes hopefully muscle memory and much easier just to arrive. The other aspect of the professional, which I think ties nicely into this idea of mundane doing and simplicity, is patience. The professional arms himself with patience, not only to give the stars time to align in his career, but to keep himself from flaming out in each individual work. He knows that any job, whether it's a novel or a kitchen remodel, takes twice as long as he thinks and costs twice as much. He accepts that. He recognizes it as reality. I think what I like most about this point is that it has a feeling of maturity to it. It has a wisdom to it. I definitely have been that person who has, I would almost say, I know I always refer back to the podcast, but I think it's a living example and it's such a tangible example for us both, all of us, to share as a reference point. But even with the podcast, I definitely went through, I think it started off as a spark, and I have been over ambitious with it. I burnt myself out with it almost, and I pushed myself with it to the point that I began loathing it. I've done this so many times where I fucking watched some stupid video or something, or read something somewhere about how I need to get ahead and I need to post on Instagram twice a day in order to grow my following. Then I do that. Okay, I undertake that because I'm like, oh, panic. It's immature. Oh, I need to do that. I start doing that, run myself into the ground, end up hating it. That spark is gone. And then it results in me stepping away from the work for a very long period of time because I resent it. And I'm also upset that I didn't get the results that I wanted from all that effort. I've said it once and I'll say it again. There are many other characteristics or elements of professionalism or being a professional that are listed in here. I'm just kind of highlighting the ones that resonated with me the most and that I think helped me tell my story in this podcast. So pick up the book, go read it if you're interested in doing that. The next thing that I loved is the professional does not take failure or success personally. Evolution has programmed us to feel rejection in our guts. This is how the tribe enforced obedience, by wielding the threat of expulsion. Fear of rejection isn't just psychological, it's biological. It's in our cells. Resistance knows this and uses it against us. It uses fear of rejection to paralyze us and prevent us, if not from doing our work, then from exposing it to public evaluation. The professional cannot take rejection personally because to do so reinforces resistance. Critics are not the enemy. Resistance is the enemy. The battle is inside our own heads. I had to read the Bhagavad Gita when I did my yoga teacher training. And this was one of the most profound outtakes for me, was this idea of honoring our fleshly experience of working. We have to work. You can't survive without doing, without partaking, really. For the most part, the general population, unless you're a monk, there are different types of people that are here to do different types of things. But for the most part, most of us are here as a part of the workforce. We're here to do. When you come to accept that and relieve yourself of this idea that I'm only doing if I get, you can surrender to the doing. And it makes it so much more pleasurable. I've honestly had to do that with myself. I have Jedi mind tricked myself with this podcast, guys. You have no idea. I feel resistance almost every single time I sit down to do this. When it comes down to sitting and planning, resist. When it comes to sitting and recording, resist. Granted, those moments of resistance are becoming easier to overcome, because what I say to myself is not that I have to do this. I say I have the privilege of doing this. I might not say that out loud, but I say that to myself rather than saying, oh, I have to. This is a practice that I'm dedicated to showing up. And what that means is that I am lucky enough to be healthy, to have the energy, to have the capacity and the resources to create these podcast episodes. I've elected to do this. For that reason, I am so lucky to sit and do this. And anytime I find myself getting agitated and being like, oh, it's taking so long, I'm like, enjoy it. Don't make it an ugly experience. Don't make it hard on yourself. Don't make it cuck. Enjoy it. And I think, again, it takes practice. It doesn't mean that I enjoy every single second of it all the time, but it really, really has made it easier. So back to the excerpt. The Bhagavad Gita tells us that we have a right only to our labor, not to the fruits of our labor. All the warrior can give is his life. All the athlete can do is leave everything on the field. The professional loves her work. She is invested in it wholeheartedly. But she does not forget that the work is not her. Her artistic self contains many works and many performances. Already the next is percolating inside her. And this one is the real stinger. Listen up, lean in, guys, because I loved this one point so much that I honestly might print it out and put it up in my studio somewhere so that I can see it regularly. But it says that there is no mystery to turning pro. It's a decision brought about by an act of will. We make up our mind to view ourselves as pros, and we do it. Simple as that. The most important thing about art is to work. Nothing else matters except sitting down every day and trying. Why is this so important? Because when we sit down day after day and keep grinding, something mysterious starts to happen. A process is set into motion by which inevitably and infallibly heaven comes to our aid. Unseen forces enlist in our cause. Serendipity reinforces our purpose. I wonder if anyone listening has experienced that, because I've noticed it now with my recent rededication to the podcast, how showing up, and I've literally just had to say, fuck it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I get one view. If I get one listen, does not matter. I am showing up. And there is something, if we believe in the power of our thoughts, that energetic pulse that you send out into the universe with that dedication, with that renewed passion and joy of work, I really think it sets things into motion. I've gotten random messages from guests in America. I don't know, people being like, can I please come on your podcast? I'm like, how the heckaloonies did you even hear about me? Am I famous? Yeah. Do you get what I'm saying? So what is it that really holds us back from making a start and from showing up? There's an immense fear that comes with looking our dreams in the eye directly and seeing our potential with clarity. I don't think I could say this any better, so I'm just going to read this to you. I hope this isn't turning into like a bedtime story, but here we go. Fear. Resistance feeds on fear. We experience resistance as fear. But fear of what? Fear of the consequences of following our heart. Fear of bankruptcy. Fear of poverty. Fear of being selfish. Fear of being ridiculous. Fear of launching into the void. Of hurtling too far out there. Fear of passing some point of no return, beyond which we cannot recant, cannot reverse, cannot rescind, but must live with this cocked up choice for the rest of our lives. These are serious fears, but they are not the real fear, not the master fear, the mother of all fears that's so close to us that even when we verbalize it, we don't believe it. So true. Drum roll, please. Holy mother of pearl, guys. The fear that we will succeed. Let me start that again. These are serious fears, but they are not the real fear, not the master fear, the mother of all fears that's so close to us that even when we verbalize it, we don't believe it. Fear that we will succeed, that we can access the powers we secretly know we possess, that we can become the person we sense in our hearts we truly are. This is the most terrifying prospect a human being can face because it ejects him at one go, brackets, he imagines, from all the tribal inclusions his psyche is wired for and has been for 50 million years. We fear discovering that we are more than we think we are, more than our parents, children, teachers think we are. We fear that we actually possess the talent that our still small voice tells us, that we actually have the guts, the perseverance, the capacity. What more is there to say on that, guys? What more is there to say? I'm just going to let that be that. I'm not even going to try comment on that because, speechless, really. There's another theme that has been cropping up for me consistently, and this is one of knowledge of self. Truly knowing who you are, what your needs are, what makes you tick, what your weaknesses are, what your strengths are, your quirks, your positive attributes, your style of going through life, just really, truly knowing yourself. I know I made a podcast episode about, is it even necessary to be an individual? And I'm glad I went down that road of analyzing that and criticizing that and really picking that apart. Because I don't think we need to try be individual in as much as we need to fabricate that or perform individuality. The truth is that we are all individual. As much as we are all one, we are all of the same life force, we are individual expressions, and we have our own unique, special gifts, talents, things we can offer the world around us. So this gets us into the idea of an authentic self, of your authentic self, because when it comes to truly knowing like what it is that you want to express or what is the project, I feel like if you're at my point or stage in life, maybe not, but around 33, which is my age now, I feel like I've had some time to really stress test what it is that I want to, what mark it is that I feel like I want to leave on the world. And it doesn't even have to be a mark. I'm not saying like Pulitzer Prize winning poetry book, which is my thing that I feel like I have to do before I die. It's more like the thing that I just feel like I have to do. It's quite simple. I studied English literature at school. I've always been into English, always. And when I was in university, I remember having a passing thought that I would like to be a writer. And I so quickly kicked, like literally drop-kicked that thought out of my mind, converted that try, literally, through the polls, get the fuck out of here. It's impossible. I was like, it's not who you are. It's impossible. It's contrived. It's inauthentic. When it is probably the most authentic thing I could have thought, because it stuck with me. I had that thought when I was 18 years old. I'm 33 now, and it stands true. It holds true. So I'm getting into this idea of the authentic self because it requires us to know who we truly are, but it also requires us to understand who we've always been, like who have you always been? Because we are born unique. I had a guest on the other day and I was chatting to her about fashion and I asked her, have you always had a wild fashion sense? Or have you always been this expressive with your clothing? And she was like, oh my God, yes, 100%, since I was a kid. You hear this so often, that there's these characteristics that are unshakable, that are hardwired, that come through as a deep imprint that we carry and are undeniable. So I guess I'm using it as a moment for reflection for you to think about what that is for you, or who you are, who you've always been. It's a good way to know what kind of territory or what area your mark in the world is likely to land. So he gets into the section, the authentic self. There's a quotation from William Wordsworth, the poet, in here, which I think I'm just going to read to you. Our birth is but a sleep and a forgetting. The soul that rises with us, our life star, hath had elsewhere its setting, and cometh from afar, not in entire forgetfulness, and not in utter nakedness, but trailing clouds of glory do we come from God who is our home. In other words, none of us are born a passive, generic blob waiting for the world to stamp its imprint on us. Instead, we show up possessing already a highly refined and individuated soul. Another way of thinking of this is we are not born with unlimited choices. I love that. We can't be anything we want to be. We come into this world with a specific personal destiny. We have a job to do, a calling to enact, a self to become. We are who we are from the cradle, and we're stuck with it. Our job in this lifetime is not to shape ourselves into some ideal we imagine we ought to be, but to find out who we already are and become it. I'm having like a full circle moment here, I swear to God. Granted, there are aspects of ourselves that do need refinement and that can be worked on so that we can enable ourselves to self-actualize. We can support ourselves on our journey to self-actualization. But I cannot tell you that I disagree with this point at all. And I love this idea of us remembering who we are, as opposed to finding it out by outsourcing information, you know, that it's a matter of uncovering our truth that is cellular, our cellular truth. The reason I also mentioned that, I mean, aside from the fact that it's just completely profound, is it helps guide us into knowing and understanding what our territory is, as I said, like understanding where it is that is our jam, that is our like amniotic bubble, our territory is actually how Pressfield describes it. It's our domain. And if nothing is standing out to you or jumping out to you, then there are two questions you can ask yourself in terms of knowing your territory and claiming it. One of them is, are we seeking the good opinion of others? Meaning, are you looking around you for validation, to check in with other people, to get their buy-in on this thing? Okay. If you're looking around you and doing it for the sake of winning approval and winning favor with others, then we have to go back to the drawing board, or we just have to look with a little bit more scrutiny at whether this is truly something that's within our territory or that we're doing for the right reasons. And the other question, I think this is so good. I did give a ponder on this question once I read it, and I encourage you to do the same. If I were the last person on earth, would I still do it? Like, would you still do the thing? For me, if I was the last person on earth, would I still write poetry? Yes, I would. I can say that. In fact, I'd probably write more poetry because I'd have more time on my hands. Let's say it's an idealistic situation and food and water are plentiful and nothing is scary. Would I write poetry if I was the only person on earth? Yes, I would. I truly believe that I would. And I probably would also continue talking to myself and recording myself. In all likelihood, I probably would be doing that because I'm nuts. So it's a good way for you to evaluate if you're on the right track. And that brings us to the closing of our episode. What do we know now? That resistance shows up where something meaningful is trying to happen, that we can use that as a guide. And that one day we are all going to have to make peace with the life that we've lived. We started this 2-part series with a question, and that was, what's the one thing you'll regret never doing? If you have your answer like I have mine, I think we can begin to accept that we may never feel ready, and we'll probably never get rid of fear. But one of the most important and vital steps is always the first, and that is to simply begin. With that, I will read to you my closing excerpt from The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. Creative work is not a selfish act or a bid for attention on the part of the actor. It's a gift to the world and every being in it. Don't cheat us of your contribution. Give us what you've got. Thank you for making time for us, and I'll see you in the next episode. Mwah.